We're out doing some sampling for the 2014 resident fish assemblage study. The goal is to determine the relative abundance of various resident fish species throughout the reservoir. There's three main components to the study. The first is collect data that's comparable with previous studies, describe the abundance of predator species throughout the reservoir, and another goal is try some new techniques that haven't been utilized previously and see if they can be compared to results of previous studies. And it's going to use a variety of different sampling techniques, from beach seining to snorkel counts to electrofishing, and even some components using long line baited hooks to capture burbot. Past fish assemblage studies relied on beach seining and snorkel observations as the primary sampling methods. These methods will be employed again to allow for appropriate comparison of results. The beach seines will be deployed from the bow of a boat with one end attached to shore. Captured fish will be identified as species and enumerated. Underwater diver observations will also be conducted in conjunction with the beach seining. The 2014 study will include some new methods to account for potential bias with the previous sampling methods. Tonight, we're going to go out and meet up with some technicians from HDR who are doing some electrofishing. Electrofishing is they're going to pass the electrical current in the water that'll stun the fish temporarily so they can net them and bring them on board and weigh and measure and tag a few of them. There's a number of sites in the reservoir that are being sampled, seeing what the species composition is. Most of the species will just be counted. A few of the species of interest like smallmouth bass and pike minnow will be tagged with pit tags and floy tags. Audrey Thompson is the project lead from HDR.
Tonight we are electrofishing around the near shore. We have two sets of anodes out in the front and then an array of cathodes in the back. And when we electrify it, the space between the anodes and the cathodes shocks any fish that are there momentarily, so they'll flip over, stunned, and we can scoop them up and put them in this tank, and in the tank they recover. And at the end of our 10-minute segment, we take them out one at a time, identify them to species, measure and weigh them. If we catch bass or burbot, we're implanting a pit tag and a floy tag before we let them go. That way they can be part of the larger mark recapture effort.
Okay, we have a smallmouth bass here. He's over 100 millimeters, so we're going to put a pit tag in him. We get the pit tag code off of the tag reader here, and we just put a small poke in their abdomen and feed the tag in. And there we go. Double check that it's there and let them go. If they were larger, we would have also included a floy tag, and that's a tag that goes just below their dorsal fin.
Most of the sampling is taking place between about 7 p.m. and 3 a.m. Typically, sampling's done at night because fish come into shallower water where they're more susceptible to electrofishing. Part of the electrofishing sampling is to attempt to tag and recapture smallmouth bass. As we capture fish and tag them and they're released, if we recapture them again, we can use the ratio of tagged fish that are captured to untagged fish to come up with an abundance estimate.
So this is a
Smallmouth.
larger smallmouth.
Oh. Got to find him. 212 millimeters. 122.1 grams.
Okay. Yeah, this one will get a floy tag. This is going to be tag 1712. So he's tagged,
Ready to release.
Another new method of capture will be the use of long lines with baited hooks for burbot and northern pike minnow. Past resident fish investigations have not recorded meaningful numbers of adult burbot, possibly due to sampling bias associated with the methods used. However, large numbers of adult burbot were observed during recent northern pike minnow removal efforts in the Wells Reservoir.
Today we're out doing collection for pike minnow and burbot. We started at Wells Dam and we're heading up towards the Okanagan, sampling areas all in between. Our focus and goal is to get population estimate from recapture as we tag these fish in the spring and we fish throughout the summer and fall, try to get a handle of how healthy the population is and if we're getting recruits. So what we're going to do today is we're going to pull some set lines. Our hopes are to capture some burbot and pike minnow, tag them with a pit tag, and we're also going to tag them with a implant tag in the back to identify the fish for future capture sessions. And then we're going to release them with a goal of capturing the fish later in the fall or summer. So we're looking for a variable sample size to indicate that there is recruitment going on and that we've got a population of fish out here that's actually expanding.
The 2014 Resident Fish Assemblage study succeeded in meeting the main objectives. We were able to collect data that was comparable to previous studies, and by utilizing the newer techniques of electrofishing and long lines, we were able to better describe the abundance of various resident fish species, and in particular some predator species of interest. 20 different species of resident fish were observed during this study, and nearly 13,000 individual fish were captured or observed. During the 2014 study, three-spine stickleback and red-side shiner were the most abundant fish species observed. Similar to the results of past studies, sucker species and northern pike minnow comprised a significant proportion of the resident fish population. The most abundant predator species were northern pike minnow, followed by smallmouth bass. Other predator species observed included yellow perch, burbot, and walleye. Previous resident fish investigations in the Wells Reservoir have examined the relative abundance of fish species but made no attempt to estimate the actual abundance of any species. In this study, we attempted to estimate the abundance of smallmouth bass and burbot in targeted areas. These efforts will help to provide a better understanding of the populations of these two predator species. Because of the variations in total catch and species composition among sampling methods and locations, we find it may be necessary to continue to utilize multiple sampling methods in the future to accurately describe the resident fish community. The Resident Fish Assemblage study is part of the Resident Fish Management Plan. The goals of the Resident Fish Management Plan are to protect and enhance resident fish populations and habitat in the Wells Project. The 2014 Resident Fish Assemblage study was successful in gathering information that supported these goals.